1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello, welcome to the CS4 HS Hangout on Air. Today we are excited to be talking with Jen and Jeff about how to leverage the MOOCs that they've developed over the last year or so to do some teacher professional development on the new computer science principles curriculum. So I'm Karen Parker. I'm the program manager for the CS4 HS program at Google, and I'm going to turn it over to Jen and Jeff and let them introduce themselves, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So Jen, tell us, give us your background, where you're from, and
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Rosato, and I am an assistant professor in the computer science department at the College of St. Scholastica, which is in Minnesota. I've been doing these CS4 HS projects for about 4 years and did online versions of them the last 2 years. And now we're moving into doing some more professional development with the mobile computer science principles continuing on for next several years.
Great, thanks. And Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Gray. I'm from the University of Alabama. I'm a professor in the Department of Computer Science. I'm originally from West Virginia near Pittsburgh and lived in Nashville for a while, and now here down in Tuscaloosa in Alabama. So we've also done the CS4 HS since about 4 years, so face-to-face versions, and then following up with the MOOC from last year. So we've had a great experience with those, and looking forward to talking about how we can share that and how our MOOCs might be able to be leveraged across other states.
Great. So just to give a little bit of background for those that aren't familiar, the 2015 CS4 HS funding cycle in the U.S. is going to be focused on the new AP Computer Science Principles curriculum and communities of practice. So the applications, our expectation is that the applications coming in will have a solid plan for how they're going to address the computer science principles curriculum and have a plan for implementing a community of practice. And so the thought is that Jeff and Jen have done some tremendous work building out these MOOCs, and there is a great opportunity to leverage the material that they've done so that potential applicants can just focus on a community of practice rather than having to reinvent some curriculum around computer science principles. So we're going to spend the next hour talking about their MOOCs and their material, and maybe brainstorming some ideas on how their material could be leveraged. And we would welcome your questions and your thoughts and ideas about how you might use this material. So why don't we start with doing a little bit of an overview of how your various courses are structured and how they cover the computer science principles material. So Jeff, do you want to start?
Sure. So a little bit of background about how our MOOC even came to existence. We have a National Science Foundation grant with a CE21 to train 50 Alabama teachers on CS principles. So we're in our last year of that. We just named our 20 new teachers. And so in doing that, we had a need geographically. Some of our teachers were over 6 hours away. And so we had to have a way to bring those teachers together in terms of providing content knowledge to begin with. So our MOOC actually started from taking our smaller effort within Alabama and then opening it up to the more national kind of openness with CS4 HS last year. That's kind of the context for that. So as we're training throughout, we're doing year-long PD, and mainly the summer is a lot of the content, and then throughout the year we're having opportunities for our teachers to talk with other teacher leaders in our program. But the MOOC that we do in the summer, we cover 6 weeks of courses is the design. There's 6 main units, and there's 2 supplemental units that will be available. And the idea is we're looking at most of the big ideas of CS principles as a driver for some of those units. So the way that it's structured is we have units on those topics, and we have obviously some videos, some lecture material that's open and available for other teachers to use however they want. And also I've put my own exams and quizzes out there. I've taught CS principles since 2011. We have a lot of resources for that. And we also try to engage the community online, synchronously and asynchronously, several ways. So that's kind of the structure. We start in late May and end in the middle of July is the goal, and really opening it up to anyone across the nation who wants to do it, just not the Alabama teachers. And then in Alabama, we have in late June, we do a face-to-face PD. So we take our first 3 weeks of our MOOC, and then we meet for 1 week of face-to-face PD, and we then have the July 4th holiday week off, and then we come back and finish up in July. So that's kind of the structure of what we've done in the past, and probably the way that we would follow it again this summer. Even though, you know, if someone can't start until you know, a few weeks later, that certainly is possible for them to still join. It's not like they have to start right at the exact week.
Thanks. Jen, do you want to give us an overview of your approach to computer science principles in your MOOC?
Sure. So the curriculum that is in our MOOC is what we call mobile CSP, or mobile computer science principles. And the idea behind it is that they will learn the computer science principles by building socially useful mobile apps. So we use App Inventor, which is a blocks-based programming language for students to be developing their apps with throughout the course. We try to emphasize the writing, the communication, the collaboration, the creativity, all those things that are part of the computational thinking practices or the big ideas in the computer science principles curriculum. The way we ran it last year, and the way the course is structured, is that there are 8 units online. The first unit is kind of a getting started one in terms of this is how you like operate within the online course and getting signed up for all the accounts that you need in terms of, you know, App Inventor and setting up a portfolio and things like that. And then there's 6 weeks of content, and during the summer we try to run it about 1 week is 1 unit and try to cover it in those terms. And then the 8th unit is kind of follow-up in terms of if you're going to teach this over the year, this is what we provide during the academic year. So we try to have periodic hangouts. We monitor the discussion forums so that if people are asking questions, you know, there's somebody there who can respond to them about that. For people who are intending to teach the course, we provide a little bit of extra support through small groups that are assigned to a mentor teacher who has used mobile CSP before, and then those small groups meet online through Hangouts during the summer, and I know the mentor teachers stay in touch with a lot of their participants over the school year too.
So what level of teacher would you recommend for your material? Do you think someone brand new to teaching computer science would be comfortable in your courses, or do you think someone needs to have a little bit more experience under their belt?
Jeff, I'll let you go first. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we had a wide range of backgrounds on our MOOC. So we had teachers who've never taught computer science, and I also had college professors who were looking to teach CS principles at the college level. So one thing I learned is that the kind of differentiated instruction that you would do in a classroom is also needed in the MOOC in terms of trying to find ways to accommodate the different backgrounds and experiences. So there's several ways we approach that, especially like on the forums. We try to provide a certain special subgroup for those who are brand new to computing, so they may feel more open to answer questions. But I think, you know, we targeted actually teachers who had very little experience. But along the way, so even teachers who had a lot of experience in computer science may not know the computer science principles specifics of the framework. So even if someone has a lot of content knowledge in computer science, there's still the need to understand how the framework works and how that all fits together. So there's still that benefit to someone who's really experienced. And also there's going to be some new things coming up, like a lot of the participants will send out links or related things. So, you know, I've benefited a lot myself just from the community that grew around the MOOC by learning about new things that the participants were finding and suggesting themselves. So even from you know, those who have experience, there will be some things that come out that are you know, beneficial, I think, to everybody. But I think the key is we start with helping those who have little experience and make sure that along the way we scaffold and layer things so that everybody has a chance to gain some knowledge.
Mm-hmm. I would say the same thing about ours, that it's certainly appropriate both for new teachers who are new to computer science as well as those who are experienced. I think our impression last year was that those who are experienced computer science teachers maybe didn't have to spend quite as long on the lessons. They were able to go through the content a little bit quicker. But those who are new maybe took a little bit longer as they were going through the materials. So this curriculum is based off of the originally developed one that Ralph Morelli and Chinma Uche did out of Connecticut, and they have always had many teachers in their group there that are new to computer science, and so have been very successful in terms of using the curriculum and being able to learn it. And I think part of it, as Jeff mentioned, is that there's a lot of content you have to learn in terms of the computer science principles framework, and so we want to provide the opportunity for everybody to learn all of that content. And the idea of the experienced teachers being able to suggest new resources and being able to plug and play things that they've tried in their classrooms as well has been a good benefit for the community too.
So that makes me wonder about when teachers are done with your content. Have you seen teachers jump right into teaching computer science principles after finishing your course, or is there more development and study and time that's needed?
Jen, you want to go ahead and answer that one first?
Sure. So our curriculum addresses every single learning objective that's in the computer science principles course, and it includes lesson plans and assessments along with it, so the teachers can take that and they can jump into teaching the course right away. As far as the teachers, say, who went through the online course last year, I've kind of seen it play out maybe in 3 different ways. So there's some teachers who are teaching it right now. So they took it, they finished the course over the summer, and they started implementing it from day 1 in their classes this fall. Some teachers have implemented parts of it in existing classes, so they may have taken, say, the first 4 units and done it in a semester-long Intro to Computing course and are working to get computer science principles offered in their school. And then there's another group that did the course over the summer and didn't have a course to put it into during the academic year, so they've been working with their schools to get that on the books, and then are planning to teach it in the following year. So kind of those 3 different ways.
We've had a similar experience with, we had our original 20 Alabama teachers who were part of our grant, so I know for sure that they were teaching it, and we were working with them throughout the year. But it's really great when doing these MOOCs, so we'll still get an email every now and then out of the blue just from someone who was on there in the past and said they just taught a lesson at that point of the year, which we covered back in the summer, and have something they wanted to share and bring that out at that time as well. So one of the things we also did in our MOOC that we thought was helpful to teachers throughout the year is we have 8 of our teacher leaders. These are really experienced computer science teachers. One of them had a PhD in computer science and was teaching high school, and they offered flash talks. So we had all these flash talks of their recommendations on how to teach it. And we also took specific topics, and they've mentioned it from a teacher's perspective. So it's one thing for me to try to say that from my office in a university room, but we also brought all of our teacher leaders, and they had a role in creating some of that video. So one of the distinguishing things about our MOOC is a lot of our material and our lesson plans even are driven by our teacher leaders who created those materials and piloted them the year before our MOOC went live. So those kinds of things, the teachers who were in the MOOC were more open to adopt, and it wasn't something that, because what I do in my college class may be a little bit different, maybe different paced, and so we have a pacing guide that we're working on and that we share, and we also have the teacher-driven lesson plans.
And your material is it? Do you think it's better done synchronously, asynchronously? Is it available in both forms?
In our case, it's available in both forms and still available. So even when the real intense sections or time of our MOOC would be in the summer when we have a lot of our teacher leaders and others online helping with some of the forums and so on. But we keep we have like I think 96 videos up, and we have a lot of some of the PowerPoints and lectures and other teaching materials out there on the Google Drive still. So those are available even after the MOOC is officially kind of over in terms of the interaction part. So all that's available, and the kind of the synchronous stuff is gone after the MOOC is over, but we still have an online forum that people are still posting to and interacting with each other.
Yeah, and that's about the same for us. Our intensive synchronous time is during the summer, and we'll host, say, like weekly office hours, and we have a dedicated community manager at that point, and that's when the mentors are working with their small groups and hosting the weekly Hangout sessions together. But during the academic year, anybody can use the materials and sign up and look at them. And we still have people who are monitoring the discussion forum. It's just that we're not having those weekly activities as on a regular basis as we do during the summer.
Great. So it looks like we have a question. Lori asks a great question. How do we access your material?
Yeah, so there's a URL. I think we both have URLs, right, that point to app spots that are driven by Course Builder and the underlying app engine. So I think it's just a way. Maybe on the event we could mention the URLs there. I'm not sure if it's there or not.
Yeah, we'll get those posted.
Mm-hmm. The one for ours, if you go to mobilecsp.org, then the links to the courses are at the top of the page. So mobilecsp.org, and that will take you to we actually have 2 courses. One is a whole set of materials that you can just use directly with your students, and then the other is the teacher-facing side of the course, is what we like to call it, and that's where all the lesson plans and resources on pedagogy are at.
Yeah, we posted the URLs to these MOOCs in the description for this Hangout. So if you're online now and you want to navigate over to the description of the Hangout, you should see the URLs. We'll also post them as a follow-up in this discussion. And we welcome any other questions out there. So if you have questions, please post them, and we will certainly get to them. So what do you guys, have you guys had, I think both of you actually have had some conversations with folks outside of your particular regions around leveraging your MOOCs for a CS4 HS grant and teacher professional development in 2015. What are some ideas? What are some ways you think that people could leverage this material? Or how would you like to see it leveraged?
Jen, you want to go first?
Sure. So I kind of, Mobile CSP is run by a team, and so I kind of run the online only portion. Like I said, Ralph and Chinma run the face-to-face and hybrid sort of pieces that are being run out of Connecticut and kind of northeastern United States area there. And so one model that they're going to use this summer is this hybrid approach, where they're going to do very similar to what Jeff has done, where they do a couple weeks face-to-face together, and then they'll have participants go back and work on a couple of weeks online and do a mix of that. So that would be one possibility for people who are looking to leverage the materials that we have. Another part of it could be, maybe they're setting up, maybe they're just going through the online course, but they're putting together some face-to-face meetings to talk about what they've covered in the online course and to debrief about that. One of the features of the Connecticut piece is that Ralph has what he calls itinerant teachers. So this is Pauline Lake, and she's also known as the secret sauce for the Mobile CSP project. But she goes around and she visits the teachers in their classroom about once a week or every other week, depending on how far she has to drive to get to them. So that would be another way that people who are setting up the communities of practice could use their funds, is to have a teacher visit classrooms and give those people who are using the curriculum some feedback on it. And I think that is, something, especially for those who are really new to teaching computer science, that's a valuable support for them to have somebody right there that they can ask questions of. So.
Yeah, so we also had some discussion with a few states that might want to use our online portion for content delivery and general discussion of principles, and then have face-to-face. So in that case, we would suggest following a model very much like we just do in Alabama, where we have the 3 to 4 weeks of content knowledge, and then we meet for a week physically, face-to-face, and then we wrap up with a few more options and also some different homework assignments. We actually do an example of one of the performance tasks. So the Create PT that's in CS Principles, we actually do that with, as a part of the course for getting the certificate that we provide. So one model would be just to follow along online with us, and then at the time we have our we have 2 weeks of break in the middle. That would be a great time to bring everyone face to face. I think that's better than maybe doing it at the end, because you also want to build a community. So if you have a certain region of teachers, it's nice to build that community of practice and not waiting to the end. If you do it too early, there's not a whole lot to talk about. If you do it at the end, then you miss some opportunities. So we do that right in the middle for that reason, and follow up with them. And it's really exciting from the face-to-face to see the friendships and the collaborations build. And then we're doing year-long stuff with our teachers just in Alabama, and just to watch that kind of blossom and take over. And that's kind of also helping to address the sustainability of CS Principles, because as everyone knows, like the computer science teacher, if they are in a high school, they're alone. There's very few schools with many teachers. So building that network within the region of other colleagues that they can collaborate and rely on and share things with is really important.
Jen, have you any other lessons learned about sort of doing the blended approach of face-to-face and online?
So I think that they have that itinerant teacher. They also do bi-weekly hangouts, I guess, is another piece that they've found helpful. So even if you have someone visiting the classroom, just to check in together every 2 weeks, that way. I know I've done that with some of the teachers that are just in our online portion, and been able to do, say, just hangouts one-on-one if they have questions and things like that. So I wouldn't, even if you can't get to the whole visit their classroom, even if you can have regular check-in meetings with them. The other piece, and I think Jeff mentioned that they have what he calls teacher leaders, and we call ours mentors, is that it's really important to include those types of people in your project. So experienced K-12 teachers, and not just university faculty talking about how to teach computer science. That piece is really important. We want somebody who has experience, in the trenches, in the high schools, who can speak to that.
So we have a question from Dennis on pedagogy. Do your materials explicitly talk about computer science pedagogy?
Yes. So a lot of times when we're introducing concepts, I'll talk about the reason why they're introduced in a certain order, explain some of the pedagogy behind that, and those come out in the videos and in some of the lessons. We're also taking approach. We have in one of our units, we spend a lot of time on the topic of cooperative learning. I know some of the folks see Amy Briggs on here, so Amy's done that, and some others have worked cooperative learning as well. And that's a way to really bring out engagement. So we try to take those structures that they're calling cooperative learning and map those across the way CS Principles is taught. And that's helping a lot with issues of equity and diversity, so that those who may not have been deeply represented in some of these classes now feel like they have much more of a voice in the class. So we even go deeper than just CS pedagogy, and we look at new kinds of things that we think are really appropriate for teaching CS Principles in an engaged way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Each of our units includes a specific lesson on pedagogy, as well as each of the lesson plans that go along with, particular topics addresses it in some manner in there. And we rely on, a number of the resources that come out from the National Center for Women in Information Technology, including things on pair programming, using a growth mindset with students, providing, appropriate feedback, and words of encouragement to them, as well as recruiting students to your class. How do you put together this course that you think is great and is going to be appealing to a wide range of students, but maybe that's not what your registration shows. So how do you go out there and talk to students to get them into your class so that you do have a diverse set in the fall?
Yeah, I'd just like to underscore the recruiting need. So in our state, we're working a lot on that, and we're up to 47% now with women and underrepresented students across our statewide courses. So it's a lot of effort and takes some time working with counselors. That's the main thing I've seen, and NC WIT does have the Counselors for Computing program. So if you're not familiar with that, anyone listening, that would be a great way to get counselors in high schools involved so they know how to properly explain what computer science and computer science principles is about. Otherwise, you end up with the same thing we've been battling with for years, and you also end up with students who need deep remediation needs. And a reminder is this is an AP rigor course. We can't have students in the course who have deep math remediation needs. We've seen that sometimes also. So recruiting issue, the link out to the counselor is really vital.
So, will you guys be making any changes to your material in the coming, in preparation for this summer and next fall?
Yeah, so on each of our lessons in the course, we have formative assessment exercises that the students complete. So a number of the teachers are using the materials in their courses right now, and we'll be taking a look at the data from the formative assessment exercises to see where we may have some where students aren't doing quite as well, and there's some misconceptions that we might need to address in the lessons. We also had teachers submitting data on each lesson plan about how well they thought it went in the classroom, so we'll get some feedback there as well and be able to make some changes right away at the beginning of the summer. And then the other piece that we're hoping to do, which is part of the funding from the National Science Foundation grant that we got to continue the online project, is to get some videos of teachers in the classroom and be able to show best practices of how you might deliver a particular lesson, or how you might give these words of encouragement to a student. And so hopefully those videos will start to show up over the next academic year.
So in our case, it was the first time that I've done anything like this. So I have like a huge list of all the mistakes I made. So we're just chomping at the bit to get another opportunity to fix those. I mean, so there's a long list of that we would like to fix. Just even maintenance things, maybe some tweaking of videos. There's also a lot of issues we want to look at with content. So since we've done the MOOC last year, there's been a lot of changes in CS principles itself. So we have to work on that. So the College Board announced the new teaching models. So there's 4 or 5 40, 50-page modules. Some of the authors of those are on here. On this call. So those will be really useful to go in and help structure and spend some time showing how those modules can be integrated in and how the teachers can use that in their classroom to benefit. So I think that would be really something we want to look at and explore. And the performance tasks have changed. When we did our MOOC last year, there were 3 performance tasks. There's only 2 now, and there's likely to be a few more tweaks to the performance tasks even coming up. So with that in mind, we need to keep getting closer and closer to what the real course will look like as we get near the final time. So those are maintenance tweaks in terms of just some issues with the MOOC itself, and then there's actual content issues with CS principles that we'll have to address and modify and try to integrate somehow.
And I think Jeff was at the meeting as well. Both of us, as we go through the course, want to take a look at it from through the universal design lens and thinking about, are the materials that we have here accessible, and can we do things to make them more accessible for all kinds of students?
Great. So how have you seen teachers using your material in the classroom? Have they taken your material and expanded and been creative and done some unique things?
So we have all the slides that are available. We've heard feedback that those were helpful, and sometimes the video, we have like short videos, and we've heard teachers tell us that those are helpful to the teachers themselves the night before as a way to just prep for the class the next day. And then we also have, as I mentioned, our teacher leaders have a lot of sections that they've done, so we want to make sure that those are available, and some teachers have looked at that. But yeah, so sometimes we'll also get all these pointers back from the teachers that, hey, there's this new thing I tried. So we'd like to, I'm actually saving a lot of those emails we get, and trying to find a way when we go back and redo some of the things for our MOOC, integrate the feedback that we had also from our teachers.
Yeah. In terms of our MOOC, because we did explicitly kind of split the content out into two pieces, where it's one side that's for students and one side that could be just for teachers. We have teachers who are using the course in a flipped model with some of their students, so they'll have the students sign up for the course, they'll watch the videos at home, and then they'll come in and do the work and the discussions. Some of them, the teachers who maybe are a little bit newer to computer science, feel comfortable showing the videos in class with the recorded tutorials or lectures, and then they discuss them afterwards. And some of the teachers will just take the PowerPoints directly that we've provided them and use those, or make tweaks to them and use those in their classroom. So it's we put the materials up, and they're welcome to use them however they want to.
Great. Well, to those that are listening in and watching, we welcome your questions. We've had a couple good ones, and we'd love to have some more. Are there any folks out there listening to the call that have actually been through Jen's material or Jeff's material? That maybe want to comment or question? We'd love to hear from you. Let us know. So do you guys have dates set for when your MOOCs are going to start in 2015, or are you still working out the details?
We work backwards. We know for sure that our face-to-face PD in Alabama is going to be the last week of June. So we work backwards 3 to 4 weeks from that, and we're likely starting again in late May, early June. I know that's in the South. I don't know if you're from the Northeast. We usually start. We end school really early in the South, and we started early. We actually start school in early August, but so that's kind of a problem for those that a lot of the teachers in the Northeast will say, well, I'm not out of school till mid-June, and that's okay. We keep all the materials up, and the threads are going on the discussion forums, but we will probably start things live late May sometime for the Alabama-based MOOC.
And our, the synchronous part, again, anybody's welcome to join and look at the stuff, the materials anytime they want to, but the synchronous online course will start on June 22nd this summer and essentially run through the end of July.
It's possible to do both, right? So teachers could come in, and so our approach is snap-based, and so you could look at the snap version and how we have ties to BJC, and then you could go over and look at the mobile computing context with App Inventor. So App Inventor is great. We actually have in Alabama a lot of our teachers, I think some of them even sat in on Jen's MOOC too, because there's a period of maybe 3 or 4 weeks at the end of the year when a lot of our teachers have finished a lot of the CS principles curriculum. They're looking for something new to show the students. So many of them are going off and doing App Inventor and looking at the content that Jen has on her MOOC too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, this is the CS4 HS Hangout on Air. We're talking about leveraging MOOCs for CSP teacher professional development. In 2015, the 2015 CS4 HS funding cycle is focused specifically on the computer science principles curriculum, which is the new AP material that is being launched in the 2016-2017 school year. And we are excited, Google is excited to be building the expertise of computer science teachers across the country, their understanding and their expertise in the computer science principles material. Our funding cycle this year, along with being focused on computer science principles curriculum, also has a communities of practice element where we are asking applicants to commit at minimum 10% of their budget to some form of communities of practice where there's ongoing support to teachers as they're continuing to develop and learn and understand the computer science principles curriculum. We know and understand that the best way, the research tells us that the best way for teachers to integrate new material and new pedagogy into their classroom is to be a part of a community where they're supported and encouraged. So we want to help make that happen for those of you, and we're hoping that you can leverage the work that Jen and Jeff have been doing for the last couple years and bring computer science principles in a community of practice to your local areas. So we're just talking about some ways in which to do that and looking at Jen and Jeff's material. If there are any questions out there about the mobile CSP or the CSP for high school material, we welcome those questions. Also, if you have questions about the CS4 HS application process, you can ask those too. And we are, for those of you that are potentially considering coming to SIGSE, the SIGSE conference the first week of March, we'll also be there doing a special session on communities of practice, which Jen and Jeff are both going to participate in. So if you don't have questions now, maybe you could join us at SIGSE and ask us questions live. Okay. Any other thoughts, Jen or Jeff? Oh, we have a question, another question from Lori. Do you know the similarities or differences, pluses or minuses to the Project Lead the Way courses versus the AP CSP course?
I can take a shot at that. From my understanding, this is just some information I've heard of. Maybe someone out there can also respond with a question if I have anything incorrect. But I think the Project Lead the Way approach is looking also at many different languages. So there may be several computer languages that are being used, and the MOOC that I'm doing is just one. And generally, in the teachers that are offering this in our group within Alabama, we're just focusing on Snap and maybe App Inventor at some level. Some are doing a little bit of Python. I think the Project Lead the Way course is looking at much more programming-focused approach. There's more languages that are being learned there. Knowing what Project Lead the Way does, the actual curriculum that will eventually be rolled out, I'm sure is going to be top-notch and really laid out and much more better than anything that I'm going to produce from our MOOC. So that would be a place that would have a really probably formal set of curriculum guidelines and so on that would follow. But I think the understanding I have is it's more a lot more programming languages focused. I could be wrong.
That leads me to the question around programming languages. Jen, you use App Inventor, Jeff, you use Snap, but really a teacher could use any programming language that they want, correct?
Right. In the CS principles, like the performance task, you can use any language you want, and you have to shoot a video of showing that. At least the current version that I understand of the performance task, you shoot a video showing and demonstrating that your application is actually working. So that's a way of getting around the issue of many different languages and verifying whether the application or the program does what it's supposed to.
So maybe just a clarification. I know when we were at the CE21 meeting, one of the questions that came up was, would HTML and CSS count as a programming language? So things along those lines do not, but App Inventor, Scratch, the Snap, Java, Alice, Python, all of those definitely would count as programming languages that could be used.
Great question, Lori. Thank you for that. I think we have another question. Bill Dunklau is considering a trial run of CS principles this coming year. Any ideas or suggestions for him? What is on Jeff's do not do this in the future list?
So suggestions I would have is to first go over the curriculum framework and spend a lot of time understanding the curriculum framework, understanding the performance tasks. I think the curriculum framework is pretty solid now, though I'm not sure there'll be a lot of changes. I think there may be some people listening who have more knowledge about that than I would, but the curriculum framework I would study first, because that's going to be understanding of essential knowledge, learning objectives, and some of the different things you'd have to do to understand the course. Looking at the performance tasks, looking at the teaching modules that just came out. So there's a new website for CS Principles. I think it used to be csprinciples.org. I think it's now like apcsprinciples.org or something like that. And from that, you can gather a lot of resources. The College Board also has a portal where you can log in and access the teaching modules that are really deeply a lot of different topics that are covered across the curriculum framework. So this would be some things that I would suggest you start with. And we go over that in our MOOC, a little overview of the curriculum framework during the early units.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good suggestions. And once if you go into either of our MOOCs, I'd say this is a great question as well, just to be asking some of the teachers that have participated in the MOOCs themselves. What is it that you learned the first year you taught CS Principles, and what would you do differently? So really tap into those communities and learn from the teachers that have done it already.
Could you answer that question at all? Like, what have your teachers learned, and what would they do differently?
So I'm teaching our mobile computer science principles curriculum for the first time with my students right now, and we're working through in the mobile CSP one. We have students create portfolios of their work as they go through using Google Sites, and I think setting high expectations for students in terms of those portfolios is something that I did not do at the beginning, and am now trying to correct. And so it's always harder to go back and fix something rather than do it right from the start. So because it is an AP course, and wanting to be at that level, setting those high expectations at the beginning is something that I'm going to work on for the future. For someone who's looking at, in particular, using App Inventor and possibly the mobile computer science principles curriculum, one thing you do want to consider as well is having devices in your classroom and finding some funding or support to purchase those devices. The books that we use, and we use a Blown to Bits book as for some of the readings, and then there's also on appinventor.org, there's a free textbook there that can be used. So there's a number of free resources. So when I talk to teachers about it, I see like my local school district spending $20,000 on purchasing curriculum. To put $5,000, $10,000 towards devices that they can use in the classroom is not as significant if they're getting free curriculum. So to think about that ahead of time.
And Jen, do you think every student needs a phone?
Not everyone. We really do want students to be programming a good chunk of the time in those pairs or collaboratively. And so our rule of thumb is just to say one device for every 2 students in your classroom. And it could be a phone or a tablet. And
there is an emulator option with App Inventor also?
There is an emulator option depending on how your district's IT department works. Sometimes that's more difficult to use because of the security restrictions that in installing software on the computers. So, that would be, if you're going to use App Inventor, think about devices and think about testing early and working with your IT department so that you've got it ready to go by the time fall semester rolls around.
Any more questions out there? Send them our way. We would love to include you in this conversation and this dialogue. Jeff, anything that teachers need to think about in regards to the use of Snap in the classroom?
We've had some challenges. Some teachers saying that they had issues of you can save in the cloud, you can save locally. We actually encourage, do both, and you can even export. So personally in my class at the university level, Snap has gone really well. I haven't seen any issues, deeply that were hurting the teachers, but there have been reported cases occasionally. I think it may have been more of just the students not understanding how to save the files in the cloud. to be honest, but hasn't been any deep issues. But you know, the way we teach our MOOC is tied to Snap, but there's nothing deep that we go into Snap that couldn't be done in Scratch or other languages. So, and then we also do like App Inventor for summer camp. So we show teachers App Inventor also in other contexts. So all these languages and environments are great, and I think the main thing, it's called CS principles. We want to get the principles down, those foundations of computing, and in some sense, the way we express that is not as important at the language level as making sure they understand that. Now how you express that can address creativity. So I find like App Inventor really motivating to a lot of students to be able to go out and tie to some socially aware thing in their community. I think that also helps a lot with gender issues. So those things also have a lot of usefulness in the CS Principles course.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, just tacked on to that, something like Scratch and Alice are also highly motivating because of their storytelling aspect. And so, you're learning the principles, but then you got to think about what who your students are and what might be the most motivating for them. So there's all kinds of possibilities, but think about your context and what you're using it, what language you want to use based on that.
Looks like we have another question here. Joe wants to ask, how do you handle the inquiry-based approach that is favored by computer science principal leaders?
Well, on my side, this really comes out with the data unit. So this is the unit that, when I teach my class at the university, it's mainly with secondary math education majors, so the future high school calculus teachers. So we're trying to train them to be able to go out and teach computer science principles. And this is the one they really love because it's really kind of inquiry-based in the sense that they're being asked to first pick something that really matters to them. So that they can go out and pick some kind of data source, and they're forming the questions on their own. They're finding the data sources, and they're in some ways, being creative and trying to find the answers to those questions. So things like that are built into CS principles that are not necessarily in the current CSA exam. So there's all kinds of opportunities like that, where activities that are hands-on, like the teaching modules that I keep mentioning that have been released. I'm not sure they're very well known yet, but those have a lot of activities that have inquiry-based kinds of design in them for the activities that the students are doing either kinesthetically or working together collaboratively in the classroom.
In the mobile CSP curriculum, maybe I'll address it from the kind of the standpoint of the performance tasks. So especially the App Inventor lessons, students in a unit will start off with a tutorial or two, and then they'll be asked to do what we call mini projects. And so they maybe will be suggested, hey, there's this camera component. We're not going to explain to you necessarily how to use it, but we've taught you how to use a number of other components. So go out, find the camera component, and see what you can figure out how to use. And so they'll do that at a mini level based on an existing tutorial. And then what we have set up right now is for them to do a create project about halfway through the course, a create performance task, and then another one at the end of the course. And so when they get to those they've had experience in kind of trying to explore and try things out on their own, as well as they have to pick the topics for what is it they're building an app around, and making sure that it's something that's important to them and their community really can be a motivator for students and drive them in that inquiry process to go ask more questions about how to do things.
And specifically the teaching module on the internet, I worked with Andy Kimmel and Dan Garcia on that, and Andy and Dan had a lot of great exercises on how to teach the internet that were very inquiry-based. So posing questions to students, having that thought time, working in pairs, whatever, going out and finding those answers and learning the new knowledge on their own, and then applying it to a few prompts that they have to then answer. That kind of approach is really fundamental and built into CS principles as opposed to the way most people may be teaching CSA.
So can you tell us again the time frame for your MOOCs that are running in 2015?
So our MOOC is going to start on June 22nd. Again, the synchronous part of it, although anyone is welcome to jump in and look at the materials now, but the synchronous part will start June 22nd and run through the end of July for mobile CSP.
We'll have the synchronous part working from late May to mid-July, And what I mean by synchronous, and if you come late, if you're like 2 weeks behind a unit, you can still do those units and ask questions synchronously, or in Hangout, or we have Hangouts for like office hours. So for students or participants in the MOOC want to do office hours, they can do Hangout. And there's no problem if you're 2 weeks behind and where we're at in the schedule if you want to ask a question from that. So late May to mid-July is the time to be doing the synchronous part, and then we're just like the past year, we're keeping those materials up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're still getting charges to our Google App Engine because people are still going through the lessons now, even. So just discovering it new and wanting to start the app, months after it actually even supposedly ended.
And we get questions from teachers like, well, I'm going to be on vacation for a week here in July. That's perfectly fine. We weren't able to do it last year because we were developing the materials as the MOOC was being run, but now all the materials are out there, so we're just going to keep all the units open, and if you need to leave for vacation, you can do stuff ahead of time, or you can come back and do it after. This is our summer too. We get that. So.
And one of the things with the unique part coming out with other states maybe wanting to do their own face-to-face is if we give homework out. So if we have an assignment for a Create PT, that might be an opportunity for the local group to do something specific there. So they may want to grade that. They may want to look over the Create PT submissions or whatever the homework would be. So I think the new model that Google's pursuing has a chance to have a lot more interaction with some of the assessment of what's happening in the MOOC back to the local teachers that are in those regions.
Good idea. We have a few more minutes if there are more questions coming out. I'll just mention that the CS4 HS applications are due for the US are due March 15th, which is right around the corner. And you can find the application on our website, cs4hs.com/application. You can read about the eligibility requirements at cs4hs.com/eligibility. If you have questions, you can post your question on our Google Plus community, or you can send an email to cs4hs@google.com.
They're not hard to write proposals compared to like NSF proposals. So I think Google's made it removed a lot of the kind of complexities that you might find in other proposal writing venues.
And I'm guessing the same is true for Jeff as well. Either of us, I'm sure, would be happy to answer questions via email if you have specific ones about how you might leverage our curriculum. Feel free to email us.
Yep.
So can I post maybe you guys could post your emails on the Google Plus community?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are, Google's very excited to be supporting the computer science principles material. It's exciting to see the enthusiasm and the momentum really across the computer science education community. And so we look forward to reading your proposals. We see you guys as the education experts out in the trenches, and we want to help support you however we can. So please send in your application, send us questions. We really want to help you put together excellent proposals. Okay, let's see, we have one last question here. So Bill's question is, are you running the MOOC from September 1st to May 30th? So talk a little bit about if a teacher wants to use and leverage your material during the school year.
Well, the synchronous part is going to be May to mid-June for us, but as I mentioned, we will keep all the resources available, and we'll have you can go onto the MOOC and still download the materials and have access to all our slides, all our quizzes, exams that we do, and videos. So all that's still available. It's just the synchronous part that would be somewhat missing. For if you want to do a Google Hangout office hour, we're not going to be running that through the whole year. It's just that one period of time in the summer.
Yeah, so all of your materials will be available, but access to you and to your expert teachers, mentor teachers, will not be available during the school year.
But we even keep our community board up, and occasionally, we'll get posts and we'll try to answer those. So it's just we won't be able to do Hangouts, 4 or 5 Hangouts a week throughout the whole year.
So we'll continue to do Hangouts in some specific community activities during the academic year, but not on the same schedule as during the synchronous session. So where like during the summer, I might have office hours 2 or 3 times a week. I would probably have office hours like twice a month during the school year. If you are somebody who's participating in our NSF grant, and you're welcome to go to the mobile CSP page to look for information about that in particular, then we'll have some stricter requirements about what you need to do in terms of participating in the community through the academic year, because we want you to have those supports available to you as you teach it and use the material.
And then Bill has one more follow-up question. Do you guys do assessments during your class, during your MOOCs, and will that be done during the asynchronous portion?
So in our MOOC, if you're participating in either Ralph's or my NSF research grants, then we will do gradings of midterm and final project or final exams for you. You'll still be responsible for grading the create and innovate projects that students turn in, but we will do the exam grading if you're participating in the research project.
And the benefit of Course Builder is every unit you can build those self-automatic grading activities, and those are still on there right now. If you were to go out to either of our MOOCs, I believe you could still do that and take those exams. For our Create PT task, we're still getting some of those floating in, and we're grading some of those for certificate purposes. We're a little behind, way behind on that actually, but we're still working on that. And I think Bill's other question was, what our lecture form, or what form are the lectures available? We have videos and we have PowerPoint slides that teachers can take and use in their class. We have the actual quizzes and exams that they can use in their class. And so basically, there's a lot of resources that we're all providing for the teachers to take back and reuse and adapt and extend however they want.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same for us, video and PowerPoints that you can use however you want in your classroom. Mm-hmm.
My worry is that I push my exams out from my classes, and my worry is that my college students are going to get on my MOOC and see all the, so it's kind of forcing me to come up with really creative and new exams every time, because I'm sharing those with the community, and I'm afraid my students are going to catch on to that.
Well, thank you. We are out of time. Our hour has gone by quickly. Thank you, Jen and Jeff, for spending this hour with us, and thank you for all of your hard work on these MOOCs. Thank you to all of the participants in the Hangout and your great questions. I encourage you to continue to ask questions in the Google Plus community, or we'll post Jen and Jeff's email addresses, and you can email them directly if you need. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing your proposals.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Dee.